Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Dan Ingham and I am honored to be your MC today. I have the pleasure of serving as the chair for the Resource Development Committee for the United Way. I've also been lucky enough to be on the board of directors since 2016. It's been an honor to serve the McLennan County community in this way in such an exciting and unique time in United Way's history. Now, as you know, our United Way has evolved over the past few years, and today it is strategically led and governed by a dedication to community impact and engagement. This transformation has occurred under the leadership of our CEO, Barbara Masaccio, and our dedicated board and staff. We are glad to have you tune in this morning, whether it's via YouTube, Facebook Live, or through our website. As we all know, these are unique and strange times that we're living in, but we're glad you have found a way to be with us today. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to our partners who have made this event possible. First, we want to thank Affiliated Bank Mortgage. Affiliated Bank Mortgage didn't hesitate to step up when we called and asked if they might support today's work. Thanks to their sponsorship, we're able to do something pretty cool today. United Way staff delivered breakfast to our funded partners who are on the front lines of serving our community every day. While we may not be able to share breakfast with all of you in person this year, we were able to find a way to share a meal with some of our organizations who are doing such significant work in our community. These are organizations who are funded each year by our generous donors. And secondly, we don't have enough ways to say thank you to KWTX Channel 10. We're coming to you today from their studio in Waco. KWTX has not only opened up their studio for this session, but they've also served as an advisor to us as we developed what we hope is an engaging and robust presentation. Simply put, today doesn't happen without all of their help in getting this to all of you. Now, as many of you may know, United Way's hallmark is the annual campaign. Each year, businesses across the county, state, and globe run fundraising campaigns to support their local United Way. There are over 100 companies who contribute locally to our United Way. These annual campaigns are underway and would not be possible without the support of the thousands of individual donors who give every day so that we can actively invest in the advancement of education, health, and financial stability for children, families, and individuals all across our county. We want to say thank you to all of you who contribute each year. Your giving allows this work of community investment to continue. And now, take a moment to sit back and watch this year's campaign video, which highlights the great work that is made possible due to the generosity of our donors. 19% of McLennan County residents live below the poverty line. 15% remain uninsured. 24% of our children are not guaranteed their next meal. 10% of our students in Waco ISD do not have a home to go to at night. United Way is pursuing a bold path forward, guided by our core value of equity, so that all children can be born healthy and have the skills needed to be successful in school and in life, so that all families and individuals can achieve greater financial stability and that all residents will have access to food, shelter, and support when needed. And together, with you, we fight. Together, with our corporate partners, individual donors, and countless volunteers, United Way of Waco-McLennan County fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in McLennan County. When we fight, we help lift up our community. We help lift up our community by distributing over $1.2 million in grants for high-impact programming. We help lift up our community by investing over $200,000 in COVID-19 response and recovery. We help lift up our community by overseeing the distribution of over $300,000 in emergency food and shelter funding. Together, we are helping to create change, but change doesn't happen alone. It happens because you choose to invest in United Way of Waco-McLennan County and the families, children, and communities we serve. When you choose to give a gift to United Way, you are empowering the essential work of our nonprofits who are on the ground every day doing the work, meeting the needs. So we want to say thank you.
Thank you for supporting our parent engagement program so that our children can thrive in an early learning environment.
Thank you for ensuring that children, families, and communities have access to programs that actively promote health and wellness.
Thank you for helping more young people have a safe place to rebuild their lives. Thank you for helping us respond every day, but in particular during the significant increase of need during COVID-19.
Thank you for supporting Women United.
Thank you for helping all children.
Thank you for helping all families.
Thank you for helping lift up our communities and striving to change lives. Thank you for choosing to live united.
It really is powerful to see how we are working together to meet the community's needs and to hear from the change agents and leaders in our community. Let's now take a moment to talk about our funded partners. First and foremost, thank you for your tireless work and service to this community. Whether it be our partners who were recipients of the COVID Community Response Fund, who responded without hesitation in our community's great time of need, or our annual grant award recipients who work year-round to ensure their clients are better off after having received their services. We thank you for all of your continued dedication to serving area residents and commitment to ensuring excellence in your programming. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to a very special guest. KJ Wells is a freshman at Midway High School. He's an outstanding student and quite the student athlete, participating in basketball, track, and football. He is also in the select baseball program with Diamond Athletics.
Hi, my name is KJ and I'm a student at Midway ISD. I think Waco is a great place for kids to live and grow, but I believe we can have an even brighter tomorrow if we build bridges of promise for all children today. Today I am going to read a poem by Will Allen Drumgoole. The poem is titled The Bridge Builder. An old man going a lone highway came at evening cold and gray to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you are wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed a chasm deep and wide. Why build this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followed after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been as naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. So, I'll leave you with one question today. Are you a bridge builder for kids in McLennan County?
Thank you so much, KJ. That was terrific. A reminder that our children are our community's greatest promise. As a board member, a father, and a person who cares deeply about this community, I'm really proud to introduce the next segment of our program. This will be an introduction of a community-led movement designed to increase the well-being of children, families, and communities all across our county. The overall goal of this work is to address the complex and critical task of improving child well-being. We can do that by ensuring a strong network of committed partnerships between residents, nonprofits, businesses, and city and county leaders. We will work collaboratively to support the needs of local families by examining our local programs, services, and policies. Our aim is to deploy child well-being champions from sectors across McLennan County to mobilize, develop innovative strategies, and to strategically invest resources. We must have a collective understanding of the importance of child well-being as a critical indicator of our community's overall health and measure of prosperity. I'll now hand it over to Tiffany Johnson, United Way's Senior Director of Impact and Engagement, who has been overseeing this community work.
Thank you, Dan. We're always clear to articulate that while United Way is a facilitator of this child well-being work and drafted the initial plan to get us underway, this is the community's movement. And it will draw upon the wisdom and experience of local families, community stakeholders, and practitioners from various sectors to promote child well-being throughout the county. This work will focus on creating greater opportunity for children ages 0 to 5 and their families. Through this work, we hope to see an increase in healthy babies born to healthy moms that go on to enter school ready to learn. We hope to see families gain access to more high-quality programs and services which truly meet their needs. There are a few core elements to this work. They are research and data collection, community engagement, and collective action. In 2009, Waco Foundation commissioned the McLennan County Child Quality of Life Index Report, which provided baseline data for us to understand how children are faring in this county. Now, over a decade later, we are engaging in research to reveal our county's progress and to identify new indicators to lead us toward measurable change. This work is very unique in that part of this data collection includes engaging communities in conversations to gain insight on their lived experiences. We're hoping to better understand our community's current condition and illuminate areas where we need to make changes to better support children and families. We're coordinating a variety of methods to gain community voice, including a small group, community conversation, and larger virtual group forums, as well as surveying families and interviewing community stakeholders. We're also very excited to engage a community advisory board as a mainstay in this work that will continue to convene to share their perspectives and hold the community accountable to the goals we set for the future. This movement is one that is working to authentically center the vast knowledge of various communities in decision-making, seeking their voices and expertise as catalysts for change that they'd like to see. This work is about really focusing in on communities most affected by inequities in health, education, and income. The data tell us not everyone is faring well in our county. If our goal is to truly support communities, we must lift their voice and allow their agency in development of effective strategies for transformational change. And finally, once we're able to fully understand our current condition and our community's collective aspirations, we will be creating a child well-being community action plan, a roadmap of sorts to move us along toward meaningful change. All of this research is currently underway with plans to have a fully developed data report and associated action plan in place in early 2021. Today, you'll get to see a glimpse of what the data reveal about the well-being of children and families thus far. As you can imagine, this effort takes a lot of work, and United Way is not doing this alone. The core partners for this child well-being movement represent a collective of local organizations who have demonstrated their commitment to improving the quality of life for our youngest residents by giving of their time, talent, and resources so that all children can thrive in this county. We thank them for their continued dedication and support. Now I'm thrilled to introduce you to some of our child well-being ambassadors. Our panelists today are members of that core partner team helping to get this important work underway. First, we have Dr. Ileana Newman, faculty physician with the Family Health Center and champion of all things related to the health and well-being of children and families. Next is Deidre Emerson, Deputy City Manager of the City of Waco, and one of our first ambassadors for child well-being. She is dedicated to ensuring all residents, and our youngest ones in particular, have community supports in place so that they can thrive. And finally, Josh Caballero is a community organizer with grassroots community development and a huge proponent for supporting residents' ability to fulfill their aspirations for the community they wish to live in. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. And so I ask you, first of all, thank you for being here. And why did you say yes? Why did you or your organization say yes to being a part of this child well-being movement?
There are very few things that are more valuable and that have a bigger impact on the kind of communities we want than child well-being. I think this last year has shown us that some things can be hidden or not paid attention to, but sooner or later they come back up. And there's lots of inequities and unnecessary suffering. And we need to pull together right now and get through this. But the way that we're going to stop these cycles of poverty and suffering is to invest in our future. And the way you invest in our future is investing in our children.
Absolutely. Invest in our future. Deidre, why did you say yes?
Well, in addition to the things that Dr. Newman just said, when I think about how in wanting to have a sustainable, saying yes means that we are doing the work towards having a vibrant and sustainable and equitable community. There's a lot of work that's already happened before now, but saying yes to this movement ensures that we are doing the work, actively doing the work to promote that sustainability, that vibrancy. And we want everyone to be able to experience the renaissance that our community has gone through, including our youngest residents, which is our children.
I love that. We're going through a renaissance right now. Josh, why did you say yes?
Yeah, so personally for me, I'm a father of a 4-year-old, and so child well-being is important because I want her to be successful and do well in life in every aspect that could encompass, right? But professionally, I'm a community organizer, and so for me, for our communities to really thrive, it means that individuals have to be set up to thrive themselves. And so I think that means that there are parents like me all across our community who may not know the language of child well-being, but it's vitally important to them as well, and they care about that.
Dr. Newman, the child well-being movement seeks to address inequities across our community, and in particular for children ages 0 to 5. Let's start from the beginning at 0 when mom is pregnant. We know not all women are accessing prenatal care, and in some cases this may lead to poor birth outcomes for little ones. In fact, African American babies are almost twice as likely to be born at low birth weight in our county as compared to white and Hispanic babies. Locally, we aren't seeing as many women of color access regular prenatal care. We tend to think that this is due to personal choice, but really let's dig a little deeper into this. Why is this, and what are some systemic barriers that may be at play?
This is such an important and big question, and I think one of the first places to start is to understand that all women want the best for their children. This is multifactorial. Part of it is women in certain communities do have less access, both to finding doctors. Access is one of them. Taking time off from work, working in places that if you are not working, you're not getting paid, and you may have other children at home. You need to think about being able to put food on the table, and that may mean not going into your prenatal care appointments. Even for women who can present for care, there's some barriers there, especially for women of color. There is a lot of literature in medicine that points to biases, often unintentional, but that exist, where women of color sometimes get subpar care. We know that this isn't also just a socioeconomic issue. We know that Black and brown women, even of higher educational attainment, good resources, who are following all our recommendations and seeking prenatal care and doing their vitamins and doing everything else we recommend, continue to have worse outcomes than white women. And that's an area we're still looking at, but we're, especially this year, I think it has been harder to deny that racism is a health care concern, that affects health care outcomes. And the microtrauma and aggression that women suffer, it affects their pregnancy and the well-being of their children.
So similarly, just as you mentioned, there are so many factors, so many barriers that are put in place for women, and we understand at this point that there are a number of factors also, or barriers if you will, that children are experiencing. And so there's an increase of uninsured children in McLennan County as compared to the state and national averages. We know that this, among other economic factors, have only been exacerbated by the pandemic we're experiencing. While current data measures pre-COVID, the number of uninsured children is likely considerably higher in 2020 as families have lost their jobs and employer-sponsored insurance. It's likely that we will continue to see these numbers climb. How does lack of insurance impact child well-being, and why is that a problem for the community overall, the community as a whole?
Obviously, as we had mentioned before, financial stressors is a barrier to care, and having families lose insurance and worry about the cost of a doctor's visit, which can be run as high as $150 for a family. That's a significant part of their income. Then they are willing to forego care. But it's not only, but again, the financial aspect of it and the lack of insurance is going to impact us. And I think that we're going to see echoes of this pandemic and its effects on childhood well-being for a long time to come. But there have been other barriers. For example, immigrant women, even if they're in the process of setting up immigration status, there has been a lot of things put out that make them fearful to seek care, because they think that that's going to impact legal things that they have in process. And so both for all our children in our community, but significantly for immigrant children and immigrant families, there have been other barriers that have cause them not to seek the care that they need, to take longer when their children are sick, to take them to the hospital if they need to leave emergency rooms prior to finishing care because they're concerned about cost. And so we know of lots of cases of families that have become bankrupt when they could not pay medical bills. And so this is a real fear for families, and it interferes with their ability to care for their children. And again, we know preventive care, if what we do now is going to impact much more the cost of care, not only financial but emotional, physical. Much harder to take care of a diabetic once they've had renal failure and need to be on dialysis and have had a heart attack than to invest in our children and making sure they get the preventive care that they need now so that they don't turn into that 45-year-old who needs insulin and dialysis and is in the hospital every other day with some complication or infection of their diabetes.
Absolutely. So preventative care is extremely important, and we know that that's the case even with children. Starting very early is very important. Thank you, Dr. Newman. Deidre, we know that in order for children to thrive, they must be well supported by a family that is able to meet its needs. Our most recent available data show considerable disparities in income by race in our county. Overall, in McLennan County, there have been changes in median household income, but most of the increases have been seen among white residents. Communities of color have not seen equal increases. In fact, the income gap across races is getting larger, not smaller. So Deidre, why should this sound the alarm for us all?
Well, it should sound the alarm for us all because we know that not everyone starts from the same starting point. We know that the starting point of the last generation is the starting point for the next. And so when we don't see those gains happening in the incomes for communities of color, that means that we are likely to repeat the same income and wealth gaps that we've continually seen. Those same gaps lead to a number of other issues within our community. So we spend our time focusing on the health of families, the mental health of families. We spend our time and our finances focusing on things that we shouldn't have to because individuals and families are not in a position to take care of themselves. And so which leads to a number of other things. I mean, we want to be a thriving community. And so we've seen so many big things happening. We've had big announcements made in our community as late as Friday. And so when we're having those things happen, we want to make sure that we have things in place so that families can take part and have those gains in their income, because when they do, they're setting the foundations for their children. And when the foundation is set for the children, then the children win too.
Absolutely, and that's what we're about, wanting our children to win in this lifetime, in this generation. So, Deidre, as the Deputy City Manager, you oversee several departments which provide services for the city of Waco. And so you know all too well the issues that plague our residents locally. In our recent survey of over 350 parents, we found that having a social support network, affordable housing, and available employment opportunities were among the top 3 matters affecting a family's well-being. As one of the city's largest employers, why is this important? Why is this important to your current and future workforce?
Well, it's important because, when I think about this question and I think about the vision of our city organization, we want our own employees to be in a place where they're thriving and that we're all moving forward together. And in order to thrive and succeed, those factors have to be in place. There has to be quality, affordable housing. There has to be good jobs out there. Economics has to be straight. And then that strong social support network, and having that sense of belonging, that is what makes people feel like they belong, is when they have that strong social network in place. And so when those 3 factors are met, for not only our current workforce, but the workforce to come, we attract other individuals to our community, which is what we want to do. We're thriving. We want to share that, but we also want to make sure that what we share, people are and have the desire to stay, and that we can sustain it. And so it's important, again, when it comes to the child well-being, that foundation is there, because we want to make sure that it's supported so that there is thriving. That's one of the things that people won't come if there's not a place for their child to thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our children and our families first, and then we seek great employment. Earlier, we shared the movement's central focus is to center the voices of traditionally marginalized communities in the work to uncover and address local inequities, which lead to decreased well-being for children and families in McLennan County. Josh, we've seen some very inspiring efforts spring forth from local residents to benefit their communities. Yet, at some point, it still becomes incumbent upon us as local business leaders, providers, and community-based organizations to work harder to meet the true needs of the community, as they see it, the needs as they see it. In our surveying, we've received feedback on how COVID-19 has impacted families in our county. Historically, we've left those most burdened by societal inequities out of the decision-making process. During these unprecedented times, how can we reverse traditional strategies so that we can bring everyone to the table, so that we are fully inclusive?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I'm honest, Tiffany, one of the things that excites me most about this movement is that there's been an intentional effort placed upon making sure that community voice is centered and that there's a focus on that. And so I think about some of the things that you mentioned earlier, right? There are opportunities for community conversations, virtual town halls that can take place. And those are important things, I think, as we think about the community advisory board that's being set up and how community members can have an active role in this entire process. Because if we think about it, yes, we have data points that we can turn to, that we know strategies that we think will work, but people who are really dealing with this on a day-to-day basis have a level of expertise on the experience itself. And so that voice is especially important now to think about this. And I think as we think about how do we expand the table, yes, all of those options I think need to be a part of that process, but it's important for us to also think and consider about what are the tables that community members are setting up themselves, and how do we then be present at those tables and a part of those conversations that happen across dinner tables all throughout our city, right? And how do we become aware of those things? We see that so many of this is interconnected with so many different aspects. Well-being is a holistic approach. And so we need to be thinking about what are families talking about in our city right now? What's important to them, and how do we begin to engage in that process well?
You know, I love what you said right there, Josh, that we almost think of it as one table. There's not one table. There are many tables across the community, and we all need to be a part of those conversations. We all need to be having these conversations at all of these tables. So now let's talk a little bit more practically about the approach. Population estimates show a great increase in the number of Hispanic children under the age of 6 over the coming years. What can and should we do to adequately plan for these families, for Hispanic families in our county?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think this is true across all communities of color, but the idea of child well-being isn't something that we have to sell, I don't think. We're not trying to make a pitch as far as the importance and the value of this, because families in our community already understand that. So I think what we need to think through is what are the barriers then that are really helping us or keeping us from moving forward. And Dr. Newman mentioned some of those earlier. I think if you think specifically about the Hispanic community here in Waco, often we know that language barriers exist, and we need to make sure that we're putting every effort that we can to try to address that and make sure that things are in multiple language, that we are providing interpretation, translation, those sorts of things. But beyond that, I think recognizing the unique challenges that the immigrant community faces in our community. We know that if children are in a Spanish-speaking home, they are experiencing higher levels of mental health needs, as well as the families. Parents who are in a Spanish-speaking home say that they have a harder time with their children, or at least they perceive having a more difficult time with their children than other parents do. And so those are important things that we have to think about. How are we helping our Hispanic community really look at that then differently, and really engage well with their children and have this conversation as a whole?
So we know that, as you just mentioned, there are a lot of unique needs for unique communities across our county. And so if we're getting out there and we're having these conversations, understanding exactly what those unique needs are, we can speak better to where we need to go as a community.
I think so, and I think the best way that we do that, Tiffany, is exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? It's one thing for me to say what some of those needs are, but that's not my day-to-day experience. And so again, going back to the conversation we were having earlier about who's actually in the table, who is being a part of the decision-making process. We know what some of the issues are in our community. We are aware of that, but really community-driven concerns or community concerns have to be solved with community solutions, and that means residents at the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. Isn't that what excites us about this work? So I asked you all in the beginning, why did you say yes? And you all let us know that you're in it, and you told us why you're committed to this work. My question to you now is, why should the community as a whole, why should they say yes to child well-being? Why is this important for county residents, for all of us?
Well, one of my favorite quotes, and I have a passion for children, is by Frederick Douglass, and it says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so the benefit for us all in this community is this is a movement, which means it is all of us. It's making the investments that we should in supporting in the movement of child well-being forward. So that's looking at investments into public transportation, public health, economics. It's looking into all of those things and making those investments that are going to help build and strengthen the child so they are whole in this community, so that they are thriving and successful.
Thank you, Deidre. Dr. Newman.
Before I answer your question, would it be okay if I said a little bit more about the other question you asked about Hispanic community in general, their needs?
Certainly.
I think one of the things because I think that this does come back to your question, one of the things that's important is that even though one of the ways that we can help those families succeed is by helping to address some of their barriers. I think the flip side of that is also important in recognizing that they have a lot of strengths. Latino communities in general are very child-focused, very family-focused, and they are under tremendous stress right now. But they have an enormous inner strength and an enormous love and capacity and community. And it's actually as they continue to stay in the United States that some of their strengths get stripped away and that their health outcomes actually worsen. Immigrants initially, especially, and we can see that in prenatal care, when immigrant women first get here, their birth outcomes are actually good. Mm-hmm. And it's when they've been here for a while and they've started to assimilate that they lose some of the strengths that they come with, and we don't provide the supports to continue to support them, and that's when their health outcomes come down. So it's not only about their barriers, but it's also about their strengths and about celebrating our diversity. Absolutely. And celebrating the strength that can actually come out and bless the rest of the community around them.
That's right, because when one section of our population does great, we all do better. Exactly. We all do better.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, which is the reason that we all need to care about this. In medicine, the other way that we know we're successful, we work really hard on teams, and the better a team is during an emergency situation, the more likely the patient is to survive. And we count on the nurse and the respiratory therapist and the phlebotomist. And it's the same in our communities. We count on all of us to make sure that we survive and that we thrive and that we do better.
And that's why they should all say yes. Everyone should be saying yes to child well-being. So, Josh.
Yeah, so I think, this has been said already, but I'll echo kind of what has been mentioned in that. We know that child well-being, there's so many different intersections that take place here, not only in what does well-being actually mean, but also how it impacts us. And so there's an old African proverb that I really love that says, I am because we are, and we are because I am. And so to me, that's exactly what this means, right? Is that we are all actually better off as a community when we're all doing better. That's right. And when we're all better off. And so thinking through that interconnection as well is important.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for all of your insights and your great information. We know that we have a ways to go as a community, but as you all have said, we can do this well and we can do it well together. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Dan.
Thank you, Tiffany and panelists. We've learned so much from you today. You've given us a lot to think about as we continue to make McLennan County the best county out there for kids and families. It's now my honor and privilege to introduce United Way's Chief Executive Officer, Barbara Masaccio. She joined the United Way in 2017, and since then has been a transformational leader in her 4 years with us. Under Barbara's tenure, this United Way has undergone a robust strategic planning process, which has led to a new grant model, which is truly the heart of who we are. Thanks in large part to Barbara's leadership, we are truly an organization that is committed to community will, community need, and community investment. Barbara?
Thank you, Dan, and good morning, everyone. As you heard from our panel this morning, the methodology and the momentum to launch this child well-being movement is grounded in both the art and science of effective research, collaboration, and community engagement. This work will illuminate the issues facing our children, their families, and our communities. But equally important, it will set in motion impact and results. The movement will inform the strategies of our United Way as we build our next generation strategic plan and commit to connecting those strategies with informed philanthropy. This work is grounded in social justice, equity, inclusion, and access for our greatest hope for the future, our children. As a young girl in the 60s, I formed my view of social justice, and like so many of us, I thought I could change the world. But as I progressed in life and my career, what became clear to me was that to be a true agent for change, I needed to narrow my focus and direct my efforts to how I could help change one life, one segment of the population, or one community. Unfortunately, what we say a lot these days is that we're living in a truly unprecedented time. What we're seeing unfold on the national stage as we live through COVID and political and civil unrest has put a spotlight on what are truly deeply embedded and systemic issues that have created significant disparities in our country. I think we all know there's no simple or short-term fix. One vaccine or one election will not create the change that we need. But I believe what we're experiencing today has created an opportunity to plainly address the inequities that persist and dramatically affect the well-being of our children. I believe there is so much we can change right now, right here, in our time, and for our children. What this research and the movement is really telling us is that in McLennan County, children, families, and communities are experiencing the same disparities we read and hear about in the national news every day. Our data tells the story of children living in poverty, poor outcomes in maternal and child health, and the accelerating pace that families are falling into poverty. But for just a moment, I'd like to focus on the aspirational and the visionary aspects of this work. I can't take credit for what I'm about to share with you. It's not my original thought, but in its simplicity, it is profound, and it is the opportunity I see in front of us. Among the tribes in Africa, no tribe is considered to have warriors more fearsome or more intelligent than the Maasai. A traditional greeting that passes between Maasai warriors can be translated to and how are the children? So this would tell us that the Maasai assess their strength as a community by viewing everything through this lens. If the children are well, then they're well. Their community is strong and their tribe is thriving. The opportunity I see for our community is to write the next chapter in our history, to shape what we will be remembered for. It's totally within our power to commit to achieving our greatest legacy, the world we help create for our children. So let's commit together to directing significant social and financial capital to assure our children and their families are the last generation whose outcome in life is determined by the zip code they were born in or the color of their skin. What change could we create if we looked at all of our efforts through the lens of child well-being? And the primary question we asked is, are the children well? What if the commitment we made today was that our efforts will be directed specifically and tenaciously toward reducing inequities across the systems that impact child well-being, maternal and child health, education, housing, and economic stability? What if the primary outcome we committed to and held ourselves accountable to is that the answer to that question would consistently be, all our children are well? So today is somewhat bittersweet, as I can so clearly see the future this work will help us create. But it will also be the last time I'll be speaking to you in my role as the CEO for Our United Way. I've announced to my board and my staff that I'll be retiring effective March 31st of 2021. So this child well-being work and the solid future we built for Your United Way will be a significant part of my legacy. As I prepare to step back from this work, here's what I know about today's United Way, and here's what I'm asking of each of you. We have an extraordinarily talented staff who work hard and smart, and they do so with limited resources. We have a board who is dedicated to the operational and governing integrity of this organization and achieving our strategic goals. We're 100% clear that every dollar we raise is not our dollar, it's yours. And we take the investment of your dollars very seriously. So when our community needs us, we're there, from annual grant making to COVID-19 response to child well-being. Because of our dedicated and focused staff and board, today's United Way is an essential part of and partner with this community. Our work has been greatly empowered by the support and partnership of the Waco, Rappaport, and Cooper Foundations, every donor who chooses to support United Way, and each of you. This work will continue to move forward because of this board and the staff and our committed partners. Of that, I'm confident. So I'm going to go off script for just a few moments here, because the real story today isn't about me. It isn't about me retiring. So I'm asking you to honor not me, but the people who have committed to our success. I'm asking you to support this staff, this board, and most certainly my successor. They are the future of this work in Your United Way. I'd like to extend a very special thank you to my staff and my board, and let you know how fortunate I am to end my career doing this work alongside of each of you. I'd also like to extend a very special and public thank you to my husband and my best friend, Dennis Bird, who is the true love of my life, my true partner, who has always been my greatest source of support and my biggest fan. And to my beautiful children, Shannon, Brian, Angela, Deanna, I love you all. I worked so hard to make you proud, and I hope I've done that as you have done for me. So as I close my comments today, I'm asking you to honor the truly amazing work we have done and the results we're achieving by making a contribution to the United Way a significant priority today and every day. It's now my distinct honor to introduce our board chair, Andrew Pick, a man that I greatly admire, respect, and love, and he'll close out our program today. Thank you all. Thank you, Waco-McLennan County.
Thank you, Barbara, and good morning. Our United Way has accomplished a great deal under the 4 years of Barbara's outstanding leadership, without which we would not have undergone the transformation to a modern United Way. We now have the robust foundation that is needed to launch the child wellbeing movement we shared today. As we look to the future, we remain steadfast in our mission, vision, and values, and are excited about the next strategic evolution. I can affirm to you that the United Way Board of Directors are a highly engaged and active group of community leaders who are very conscious of our responsibility to govern the organization for future generations. When we modernized our United Way in 2018, we established measures across all pillars with specific deliverables and regular verification of progress. We have the same expectations of ourselves as we do of those organizations that we fund. We capture data, we measure progress, we learn, and we adjust our plans. This governance process is well established and will continue through our second strategic plan development and beyond. As we move into the transitional period of recruiting, selecting, and onboarding a new leader for our organization, we are very well positioned for continuity of leadership with the current board and staff. We've been fortunate to witness Barbara define what it takes to be a highly effective CEO for our United Way, giving us clarity on many essential attributes for the role. The board is well organized to oversee the search for our new leader, with a developed approach and an activated search committee. We understand the importance of making the right selection and are currently determining the key skill sets needed for the next phase of our journey. As you have seen this morning, the work of our United Way is far from done. We have a roadmap for engaging the community, developing strategies and supporting change to deliver an equitable, bright future for all our children and their families. We appreciate your commitment to our United Way and thank you for dedicating time to our 4th annual community breakfast. We hope you're as excited as we are about the future ahead. Thank you for joining us.